The sponsor of this episode is Chadwell Supply, an OG in the multifamily industry. Chadwell is the largest privately owned maintenance and repair supplier, and they deliver orders the next day from local warehouses across the United States. To find out how Chadwell Supply will make your day better, visit www.chadwellsupply.com/difference.
Welcome to Beyond the Work, Tales in Multifamily Maintenance. My name is Chris Caramanica. As a 15-plus year veteran in the apartment industry, I have stories to tell, a desire to hear and tell others' stories. As a multiple committee member for NAA, a CAMT advisory board member and a CAMT holder, and a national presenter and educator, I have met and worked with so many great people in our industry at all different levels. This is not going to be a how-to podcast. This is going to be a How Did podcast. We are going to explore the how did tales in multifamily maintenance. How did we do it? How did we learn from it? How did we grow? How did we decide not to do it again? Join me as we go beyond the work.
BTW, First Day Jitters, from school to the workplace. Welcome to Beyond the Work, Tales in Multifamily Maintenance. My name is Chris Caramanica and I'm your host. Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. Currently traveling this week, and I missed my daughter's first day of school. But it got me thinking about a very important topic and a lot of the parallels between a first day of school and a first day of a new job. So for the last few weeks, I've watched my daughter get ready for school. She went out, she bought new clothes, like many of us do. She also organized all of her binders and paperwork and studied up on the classes that she was going to be taking, the teachers that she was going to have. I think a lot of people do this when they start a new job, right? They are very excited for a new opportunity. They're going to get to meet a bunch of new people. But there's a lot of emotions and challenges regarding starting school or even starting a new job. And I think as leaders, we need to be mindful of that. Even just regular team members need to be mindful of a new person coming into your existing work environment. How are they feeling? How are they acting? How can you help them and support them? So today I want to cover a few different topics surrounding this and maybe cover some strategies that we can all take away. But let me begin with a story. When I started at my current role at Winn Companies, it was not the best onboarding experience. I was super excited to start a new job at a new company. Winn Companies is nationally known. It was a fantastic office, large office that contained about 40 people. So I was very excited to meet new people, learn more about the affordable housing industry. I remember getting up that morning, making sure that I had nice new clothes on. Yes, I did go out the night before and purchased a new outfit for my first day, much like you would do in school, and many of us have done then I had my commute. That was probably the most nerve-wracking. Much like kids on a school bus going to school, your commute into that first day, you're thinking about, what am I going to do today? Who am I going to talk to? What am I going to learn? What am I going to know? Am I not going to embarrass myself? Don't want to set off and give the wrong expectations on the first day. You don't want to leave a bad first impression. So I got into the office and was sat directly at a cubicle. Not a big deal. It was my first real quote unquote cubicle job. And they set me up on a computer and said, okay, here are all of your trainings. Here's your username and password. Go ahead and let us know when you're done with the trainings. So that first day, I think I sat there for almost the entire day. Wasn't really given a tour of the office. Didn't really get to meet anybody outside of my boss and his assistant who had hired me. And I just sat there quietly with headphones on and conducted all of the normal trainings that we see in this business. I did all of my Yardi training. I did my fair housing. Came in the next day, same thing. Said, does anybody need me to do anything? Yep, go sit in your cube and do your training. So that's what I did. About 9:30 in the morning, it got very loud in the office. I didn't realize it had been so quiet before that. And I turned to a woman sitting in the cubicle right behind me. I said, oh, where were you? And then I started looking around and there was more people just coming back to their cubes. Well, apparently every Tuesday morning at 8:30 sharp, there's an all-staff meeting. I was brand new, my second day on the job, and nobody invited me to that staff meeting. Nobody introduced me to the people in the office. It didn't set a good, it really did not set a good first step with the organization. I felt a certain kind of way. It didn't make any sense to me why the newest person in the office was not told about this meeting, was not invited to this meeting, but I let it go. I continued doing the rest of my training on that second day of work, come in on the third day. It's now Wednesday, and I finished almost all of my training. I would say probably by lunchtime, I had finished every single assigned training to me that was in the training program. So I walked back to the vice president's office, and I said, "Hey, I have finished all of my training. What do you need me to do? What would you like me to look at? Where can I dig it?" It burned into my memory. He looked at me and said, "I don't know what to do with you yet. Just go back and find some more training to take." So this person had hired me into the organization in a role that was needed. I had sat in a cube for almost 20 hours at this point, with little to no interaction with anybody else in this office, which, as I mentioned earlier, was almost 40 people. I went back to the cube and I started the training. The next day, I continued doing training because he had nothing to do with me. I spent an entire week, 40 hours of my first week, sitting there and doing training. That was interesting because I learned a lot about the organization, but it was all computer based. I didn't talk to anybody. I learned a lot about the affordable housing industry. I learned things that probably I wouldn't have been taught for weeks and months because I took it on myself to learn more about the subsidy programs that we had, the leasing, things that weren't even in my purview. What was I supposed to do? I was told, go ahead, just go do some more training. So that's what I did. Came in the next week, and yes, there was stuff for me to do finally, which was good. But at the same time, I was not happy after 1 week because I felt ignored. So while I was doing my work, I was also looking for another job. Now, I'm pleased to say that it turned around and some other things changed a few months later in my work and personal life, which I'll talk about in future episodes, that really got me back into it. And I am pleased to say that 9 years later, I'm afoot. But this week was my daughter's first day of school. And it's hard to be out of town. It's hard to be traveling for, these minor milestones. But it really got me thinking about what was her first day like and every subsequent first day that she'll ever have, whether it's in school or it's in the work. And I started thinking about the time and effort school children do when they are getting ready to go to a new school. They're very nervous. They're full of emotions. They have anxiety. They want to make sure that they look good. They want to make sure they don't misspeak to a teacher. They want to make sure that, especially if they're going into a new school, they want to make friends. They want to have some kind of connection. And I think oftentimes we don't think about that when we're bringing in and onboarding a new hire. We know that they're there. We know that we hired them. We know that we have to train them, and we know that they have a job to do. But we forget a lot about the first impressions that we make as a person or as an organization or as a team. And like the story I told, the first impressions that I had were not very good of my region, of my company, the people that I was working with day to day. If I wasn't an outgoing person, if I wasn't a friendly person, I probably would have had a much harder time. I took time and effort to get to know all 40 people in the office because nobody else did. Nobody else introduced me. But looking back on, a teenager or a child's first day of school, they are getting to meet new teachers. They're getting to meet new schoolmates. They're getting to learn a teacher's rhythm. Imagine if you were in school and you just walked into a class and the teacher sat you down and said, okay, do all of these things online and I'll don't know what to do with you. I'll start teaching you in 3 days, or I'll start teaching you next week. And that's not the case. I have lots of friends that are teachers and educators, and I've learned quite a bit from them on their preparation. Much like new hires and students get ready for jobs, so do our teachers. And we have to, as employers, we have to, as leaders, to make sure that we are prepared properly for the first day. Not just making sure that they have access to their training modules and their email address, but really a game plan, an onboarding plan of what that first week looks like, what that first 30 days look like. And sometimes it's boilerplate, but sometimes it's very specific. Sometimes we have this project that we need you to, get up to speed on. So here's all the information that you need on this project, and we'll have a meeting about it after you review. That's something I did not get, but I learned from that experience, and I do my best as a manager of people to make sure that I'm doing that for every new hire that I bring into the organization. Sometimes it's hard for new employees to learn the ropes. They have to understand what their job responsibilities are, and it can't just be written down. Somebody has to actually explain it to them. You need to learn the company policies. And again, don't just hand them a manual. Highlight the items that are really important to their job. Highlight the most integral things that they're going to need to know to start them off for success. And they also need to know their role as part of the team. When I didn't get to meet for the first week that I was working there, the people I was going to be working with, I didn't know what everybody's roles were. And without knowing what other team members' roles were, I didn't know the right person to ask questions to. I didn't know who the best department was if I had a question about, say, marketing or paying bills in the accounting department. I didn't know who those people were, so I was not made aware of those people, and I wasn't given introductions. Just like when students start in school, and I know this from having a high school age daughter, there's a lot of fear of the unknown. You don't know who your teachers are going to be. You don't know how hard classes are going to be. You don't know what was different from last year that may change your experience this year. And it's much like that in the work world. And that's something that I'm always trying to be mindful of.
Chadwell Supply is the proud sponsor of the Multifamily Media Network. Chadwell Supply is the largest privately owned MRO supply company and is committed to the multifamily industry. They deliver orders the next day from local warehouses across the United States. Chadwell Supply offers valuable resources such as maintenance training, a dedicated renovations team, and procurement platform assistance, ensuring multifamily properties operate more efficiently. Partnering with Chadwell Supply helps communities stand out in an increasingly competitive market. Learn more at chadwellsupply.com/difference.
I want to let people know when they walk, preferably before they walk in the door during an interview process. I'm giving them a buzzword that we use here at Winn Companies. Buzzwords is a realistic job preview. We're very honest about the job, how challenging a community is, how difficult or pleasant residents might be. In a fee-managed environment, we talk much about what our relationship is with the asset managers and ownership. We let people know when they walk in, preferably before they walk in, what they can expect, both from us as a company, the team that they're working with, the people they're going to be working with, their key stakeholders, whether it's their residents or owners. Want to make sure that we're doing that on a regular basis. And it's called a realistic job preview. And I do it when I bring people on as well. We reiterate it. We talked about it during the interview, and then we really go into it in their first weeks and months within the organization. Because people are scared. They have a fear of making mistakes. They want to make sure that they are navigating the workplace dynamics properly and managing their own workload, much like students do. Sometimes it takes a while to find your groove. You have to get into a routine. You get to pick your favorite subjects at school, and you get to build friendships. And work is much like that as well. You have to establish your own workflow. You have to identify your strengths and building those professional relationships. And there's much like I'm sure we all had in school, a subject that we didn't like. There's things about our jobs that we don't like. There's things that we prefer not to do or that we don't feel necessarily good at. But we need to be able to balance the subjects that we're not good at with the subjects that we are. It's the only way that we're going to be helpful to the organization and learn something. Because sometimes doing the things that we don't feel comfortable with are exactly the things that we need to be doing to learn and grow. So, how do you ace your first day of school or work? How do we make sure that our new team members are acing that first day? We want to make sure that we're giving people full research on the company. We want to make sure that they understand their role, how they fit in the organization, who the key people are that they're going to be talking to. We also want to make sure that we're talking to them and on a regular basis, not ignoring them and putting them in a queue. We want to make sure that we are providing eye contact and answering questions and asking questions to get them to ask questions. Don't make them raise their hand, but ask the question, do you have any questions? Is there something that I can help you and support you with? That goes a long way. I said in my story, I spent my second week at Winn Companies looking for another job. I spent my third week too, but I still did my job. And 9 years later, I'm still here. And I really attribute it years later to that first week. I had people that weren't talking to me, that were not answering questions, that weren't asking me questions. And I had some people that wouldn't even look me in the eye. You have to make those personal connections. You also have to be adaptable. When you bring somebody on, you have a certain expectation of them, whether it's based on previous people in the role or just your general, I don't want to say biases, but general biases on what a certain role or position should do. But you need to learn the new team member as well. What are their strengths? Where can you utilize them? Where do they need help? Where do they need additional training? And preferably not in front of a computer. Hands-on training is the best. Yes, I'm a maintenance guy. Yes, I like to actually see and touch and do. But I know our team members on the operations side do as well. They want somebody sitting next to them, showing them how to go through a file or shadow a tour. And I think that's really important to remember, is that you can't learn everything from a learning management system. You can't learn everything on the internet. And then find your own support system. Thankfully, one of the many reasons I stayed at Winn is that there was one person that I worked with who became a fast friend, became a fast sounding board. Be that for somebody. Maybe not a direct report, but find that person that needs a listening ear. I was lucky enough to have that person. I'm so glad that person is still within the organization, still one of my dearest friends in the organization, even though we don't work together anymore even in the same state. It's like falling back into a routine every time I get to spend time with her. So there's a lot of things between that bridge the gap on making sure you have a successful onboarding experience. And much like a first day of school, people are nervous. Don't ever forget that. They want the job, they accepted the job, and they showed up on the first day. From that point on, it's our responsibility as managers and leaders to make sure that they're successful. So we already talked about questions, but what can we do to make sure that they're prepared? We talked about the realistic job preview, but is there things that we can do before somebody starts to make them feel comfortable? A simple phone call 2-3 days before. Joe, I'm so happy you're joining the team this week. Can't wait for your first day. This is what your first day is going to look like. There's going to be some computer training, but we're going to go to lunch. We're going to have a team meeting, and we're just going to hit the ground running. Talk to them about what they need to bring. Do they need to bring certain tools? Do they need to bring a planner? What do they need to wear? Do they need to go out and buy a new outfit or two, much like my daughter did last week? What is the company culture? Set them up and get them excited about what your company's culture is, what your site's culture is, and really think about how and tell them how you see them fitting into the company culture. Company culture is a puzzle. There's lots of different pieces that go into it. And sometimes it's hard for somebody to figure out where they fit in that puzzle. So set them up for success before they walk in the door and when they walk in the door. Don't ignore the small tasks. I'm sure in my first week, there was plenty of things that vice president could have shared with me. Plenty of small tasks that I could have been given that would have taken me away from the computer, taught me something, and given me a sense of ownership on my new role. So don't ignore them. Give them a small task. It's okay. Make sure that they're taking notes, but also take notes yourself. You want to make sure that the information you're giving them is the information that they need. And sometimes the best way to do that is to take notes on the information that you're giving a new employee during their onboarding in the first week, month, 6 months. So you can go back and review what you've discussed with them, what you've talked to them, and then you can recap and find out, did this work for you? And really work on time management. I remember when I first started, I was a ball of energy. All I wanted to do was work. And I was not given good time management skills because I sat in front of a computer and was self-directed for an entire week. So when I really had to start doing my job, I didn't have a routine. I didn't have a cadence. The only thing I did know is that there was a meeting every Tuesday morning at 8:30. And I never missed one after that first one that I wasn't invited to. People are nervous and excited to start with us in any new job, much like school-age children are when they go to school. They might hem and haw that they don't want to be there, but they're there. They're showing up. And so are our team members. There's a lot of parallels between first day jitters and back to work. And I've seen it every time a new employee walks through the door that I get to welcome into my organization, that I get to sit with, learn about, train, and work with on a regular basis. Those first few days are the hardest, both for kids and new team members. Please remember that. The next time that you bring somebody into your organization, or a new team member, or even you, when you move to another site, set your expectations on what you want in your role and what you need from your organization, and you'll be successful. Thank you all for joining me today for Beyond the Work, Tales in Multifamily Maintenance. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for joining me for this episode. No matter how long you've been in our industry or what position you have at your company or your community, everyone has a maintenance story to tell. Go to www.multifamilymedianetwork.com and leave me a voice message or share your information and we can tell your tale together on a future episode. Please check out our sponsors and like, subscribe, and follow to this podcast or video, and join the Multifamily Media News Network newsletter for upcoming shows and blogs from me and the other great hosts on our network. Our stories all connect us. See you for the next chapter.
Thank you again to Chadwell Supply for sponsoring this episode. Chadwell Supply delivers unforgettable service with next-day delivery, online and in-person maintenance training, and procurement platform assistance to make ordering simpler. Visit www.chadwellsupply.com/difference to learn how Chadwell Supply will make your day